What is up guys, Alex from Lakey Wargames here and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be diving back into some Ossiarch Bonereapers tactics with the brand new 3rd edition battle tome, and I'm going to show you 3 of the brand new combinations that you guys might have missed. Alrighty guys, it's time to dive back into some of those tasty tactics. I know my last few videos have been longer, more sort of rambling, putting ideas out there. If you guys haven't seen them, my last few Ossiarch videos, I did my first impressions of the book, positive and sort of negative standouts, and I also released a video with my new first competitive take on a 2,000 point army list, and there's a couple of lists in there. Both of those videos will be linked in the description below, so if you want to see more awesome Ossiarch Bonereaper tactical or / discussion goodness, then those are there for you. But today we're going to keep it short and sweet and delve straight back into some of those cutting edge tactics that I know that you guys enjoy. So what I've got for you is I've got 3 powerful combinations out of the brand new tome that you might have missed upon first glance. I know I missed them upon first glance, and there's just so much to this book and I love it so much. It's one of the things that really draw me into the Ossiarch Bonereapers is just the fact that there's so many combinations, and along with our new commands as well as our units and the abilities that they all have, there's sort of almost this endless ability of combinations of ways that you can use your units and interact with your heroes and interact with the commands, and it just makes for sort of all-round awesome on-the-fly play that other books can't generally pull out. So enough talking about it, and let's get straight on into it. So the first of the 3 that I have for you is the Counter-Strike, Ossiarch Command and the Mortis Praetorian Subfaction combination. Now, I have to give credit to this one to Toby the Kid, who is a part of the Ossiarch Bonereapers Discord that we run, so that will also be linked down below if you guys wish to join that. Full of awesome people talking awesome OBRness all the time, so yeah, link down below if you wish to discover that. But Toby the Kid dropped this in our tactics sort of like sub-room chat, and then it really got the gears turning, and I thought, yeah, that's amazing. So credit to Toby, you pointed this one out and it's awesome. So what you can do is you can use the Mortis Praetorian Subfaction ability to make one of your units charge in the enemy turn, and because it's the enemy charge phase, you can also pop the Counter-Strike command ability and thus gain the benefit of +1 to wound against the enemy unit even though you charge them. The only catch to this combination is you have to be within 3 inches of an enemy that has charged you this turn and 3 inches away from all other enemy units, but it's really good for letting you pull into another unit into an unfavoured combat. Now I know that one's a little bit complicated, so I'm going to put this one out as an example for you. It's the enemy's charge phase, and they have a unit of 10 Chaos Knights. They charge into 10 of your Mortek guard on a flank, and then you use your subfaction ability to make a unit of 6 Stalkers charge in the enemy phase into the Chaos Knights. Because those Chaos Knights have made a charge move this turn, and it's still technically the enemy charge phase, you then spend a command point on Counter-Strike for those Stalkers, who will now gain +1 wound when they target those Knights. This turns what would have been 10 Knights versus 10 Mortek, which is a bad fight for you, into one where you now have 6 buffed up Stalkers in the mix, ready to fight back with instead. This is one of those combinations that does take a little while to wrap your head around, and you do need those sort of stars to align for the enemy to charge you and then you to counter charge in. But it is, although it's a little bit wordy, a little bit hard to sort of grasp, because the Mortis Praetorian Subfaction ability is just that, it's just an ability, and Counter-Strike is a command. You can combine the two. So, you know, normally where you can't use 2 commands in a phase because your subfaction ability isn't one of the commands, you're just using an ability and a command, and although Counter-Strike is supposed to be thematically the enemy charges you and then you're counter-striking them, just because of the way Mortis Praetorians work and takes you out of sequence, you are able to pull them off and put the 2 together. If you guys have any further questions about how that combination works, then feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll do my best to explain it, because I know it's kind of wordy and kind of hard to get your head round, as I said before, but yeah, we'll be able to work you through it. So, moving on to the second combination, and that is the Catacross's Supreme Lord command can be used to buff the Mortek Crawler. This is a nice and simple one compared to the one that we've just looked at, and a lot of people, myself included, were a little underwhelmed at the Mortek Crawler's new damage profile. But there's a few ways to buff that. The obvious one is to use the new hero, the Mortison Ossifactor's Refined Creations ability, to make the crawler do exploding shots. But one thing that you might have missed out on is that if you're running a Catacross list and you pop the big +1 bubble of +1 to hit and +1 to save, his hits aren't just limited to attacks that target melee weapons, which a lot of this book has. A lot of the things in the old book that used to give just like +1 attack or +1 to hit are now worded +1 to melee weapons, but Catacross's big bubble doesn't have that restriction. So if you're running a Mortek crawler and you're using the two profiles where you get a little bit closer but you get more shots, then Catacross is actually able to buff that 3+ to hit into a 2+ to hit, which is kind of a perfect combination of the two, because the more shots you have, you want a better chance to hit, so there's more chance of you landing them, and the more that you land, the more damage you're going to do. So yeah, nice and simple, but Catacross is able to buff your Mortek crawler, and you can use that in combination with the Ossifactor, so you can now have hitting on 2s and exploding hits with the profiles that are more shots. So yeah, great way to buff your crawlers. The third and final combination that we're going to look at here that you might have overlooked when the book came out is for the Cathalos Deathriders Deathrider Wedge, and this is kind of 2 in 1 almost, but the Deathrider Wedge is a great counter defensive command as well as an offensive scalpel tool if you use it properly. What it is in the charge phase you spend a command point and the unit can now pass across other models with 3 wounds or less in the same manner as a model that could fly. I've seen a lot of people online talking about using this one to be able to get into the back of a unit, which is great. This then leaves plenty of room for another one of your units who can't fly to be able to slam into the front of the enemy. So basically your rider's going to be charging up over the enemy into the back of them, and then like your Mortek guard can slam into the front of them, and thus you're going to be creating that sort of little sandwich on the enemy there, which is awesome, but there's a lot more to it than that. What you can do is you can use that Deathrider Wedge in the same manner, but say if there's an enemy support hero behind that unit, rather than go into that unit itself, you can just altogether go straight up over the enemy, rather than charge them, and charge that support hero that is stood behind them. Obviously your charge roll needs to be big enough to be able to go up over the enemy screening unit and into that hero, but between the Deathrider's impact hits and the volume of attacks that the 5-man unit can put out, an average 5 wound hero with a 4+ save will not last long at all, and that means if you can take out the supporting hero, whatever unit you have then slamming into the front of the enemy unit, and make your time fighting that enemy a lot easier. Alternatively, you can use this ability in a counter role, much like how we spoke about using the Counter-Strike and Mortis Praetorian sub-faction ability at the start, but you can use the sub-faction ability with the Deathrider's Wedge command, so that if the enemy was to say charge into your Mortek guard, you can then pop the Deathrider's Wedge command, as it's only limited to being used in the charge phase and not in your charge phase, then combine that with the sub-faction to charge in the enemy turn, provided again you roll high enough. You can now leap up over your own Mortek wall and then get into the back of the enemy for another favourable 2v1 fight. Obviously 2 of these combinations of the 3 that I've just shown you do rely on the Mortis Praetorian sub-faction, which is one of the more sort of gamey, hard to pull off sort of sub-factions to use. But as you can see, once you get the hang of using that sub-faction, there's a lot of sort of out of phase charging that you can use to catch the enemy off guard and turn unfavourable situations into really nice situations. I am planning on doing more in-depth, unit per unit, sort of ability by ability tactics for Ossiarch Bonereapers, but I just wanted to share these 3 with you today, because these are some of the things that when you first glance over the battle tome, you might miss these little combinations, but we're going to go back in and do all the units one at a time, and really break them down and really get into them, because there's just so much in this book that it's really hard to cover. But I just wanted to give these sort of quick fire tactics out to you guys today, and I hope you enjoyed them. If you really like this sort of thing, let me know in the comments down below, and I will do more of these sort of shorter quick fire tactics, as well as doing the long in-depth discussions that obviously take more time. So thank you very much for joining me with this video today, guys. As always, stay safe, happy wargaming. Psst, hey you! Did you know that Lakey Wargames now has an official eBay store? You can buy yourself all kinds of pre-painted and new on sprue hobby goodness and support the channel at the same time. There's a link in the description below if you want to check it out. I'd greatly appreciate it, and it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Okay, see you in the next one.